Welcome along to the Matchbook Weekend Football Podcast. The grind has begun. It's Game Week 1 preview with Mark O'Haire and Adrian Clarke. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey. Now, we've already been busy this week with recording our outright preview. So if you haven't listened to that already and you want to get ahead of that before the game by game, pause this podcast, check out your podcast feed from Tuesday and play our outright preview. Maybe some of the guys' selections might be leaked throughout this show here and they're biased throughout, but there are some really good picks, some big prices put up as well, so well worth checking out. And one of the markets we covered was the Premier League Golden Boot market. Now we do have a campaign running for existing customers as well as new customers here, so it's an opt-in offer. Bet on the Premier League Golden Boot market and get a free bet every time your player scores in August and September. So if you place a back bet of £30 or more at minimum odds of 1.5, of course that'll be everyone in the market, you get a £2 free bet to use in the Premier League every single time your player scores in the month of August and September. So well worth checking out. A couple of guys' picks were big prices. I won't give that away, but do check out Tuesday's podcast. And for T's and C's on that offer, check out the promotions tab on the Matchbook Betting Exchange. And in terms of the podcast here, please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel completely for free. Follow where you're listening. And of course, check out insights.matchbook.com for a full recap of all the guys' picks. But we've asked them how the guys are. If you want to check in their summer, we got that covered on Tuesday. Let's get straight into it and let's get into the matches here. It's Ipswich versus Liverpool, West Ham Villa, Chelsea versus Man City, and Leicester versus Tottenham. The four big TV games this weekend that we'll be covering. Ipswich versus Liverpool is first up. Saturday, 12:30 kickoff. Ipswich currently 9.4 in the 90-minute market on the Matchbook Betting Exchange. Liverpool 1.36. The draw is available at 6.0. Both teams to score, yes. 174. The Asian market sees Ipswich get a 1.5 goal head start. The goal line here is 3.5. Under's the favourite at 186. So yeah, Adrian, Jurgen Klopp's left and Liverpool are still getting the early kickoff on a Saturday. What's going on?
Yeah, let's see if Arne takes it a little bit better than Jurgen. Hey, it's a brilliant fixture. It's a classic fixture to start the first Saturday of the Premier League campaign. Yeah, I love Portman Road. I'm biased. I'm from Suffolk. That's who I grew up supporting, and yeah, I'm absolutely buzzing to see them back in the top flight, and especially with such a great manager and an exciting young team. You know, this is a team full of young, gifted, talented, hungry players that have got points to prove, and their whole attitude under McKenna is to be positive. It's to take the fight to the opposition and to be bold and adventurous and see where that takes them. Well, so far it's taken them from League One to the Premier League. It's obviously going to be harder now, and that there are times in matches where they have to be a lot more pragmatic and defend better. And I'm sure they've worked on that. But in essence, McKenna's philosophy is attack-minded. So I think they're going to provide us with some fun games this season. And I think this will be certainly fun. First up, I want to find a goals angle because of that, because of Ipswich's mentality, and also because it's Liverpool, the mighty Liverpool against a newly promoted side. They'll go there expecting to score goals. They scored Liverpool in all but one away game last season. The only exception was Everton away, and they scored at least 2 goals, Liverpool, in 12 of 19 Premier League matches last season. So they'll be expecting to go to Suffolk and rack up 2 or 3 at least. So yeah, over 2.5 is what I want to pair with a Liverpool win. So that's my pick here. It's not a huge price. I think 1.76 the last time I looked, but it feels the most likely. You have to side, I think, with Liverpool here, even though they've got the new manager. They've got the class. They've had a pretty good pre-season by all accounts. I saw them against Arsenal and they look really, really sharp. Harvey Elliott in particular stood out. Mo Salah looked good. And I think that, yeah, they're more than capable of going against a really rookie Ipswich defence and maybe opening them up several times in this match. Ipswich, by the way, for as brilliant as they are going forward, they weren't exactly tight at the back last season en route to promotion. And that's the big concern. They conceded 2 or more goals at Portman Road in 11 of 19 matches. Yet they went up automatically. So that tells you how many goals they score. But it's a worry coming into a Premier League campaign. So, I think Liverpool are capable of covering this line themselves by scoring 3 or more goals. but I would expect Ipswich to potentially get on the score sheet as well. So yeah, Liverpool and over 2.5 goals, my first pick of the season. Yeah, just under 1.8.
Yeah, absolutely. And the guys did very well match on match. We will be doing our best to keep track of not just the best bet selections, but also match by match as well. Very interesting stat on Ipswich's home record conceding goals. So see if that trend continues in the Premier League. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's one other number that I should have mentioned. It over 2.5 landed in 74% of Ipswich's home games last season. So yeah, Portman Road is well accustomed to seeing lots of goals, and I think we'll get plenty on this game.
Yeah, Mark, Kieran McKenna probably couldn't have asked for a harder start in his first two games. They, of course, have Manchester City away in game week 2 as well.
Yes, it's going to be interesting to see how Ipswich adapt to the Premier League, and particularly these first two games, because I'd echo everything Adrian said. Really, he's taken all the good stuff away. Agree with everything he said as well. I'm hoping they can be competitive. I'm hoping they can consolidate, because it's an extraordinary story, really, what we've seen with Kieran McKenna taking a team that were sort of struggling around sort of mid-table and sort of immediately transforming them into a promotional beast back to back, and now in the Premier League after all those years. As I said on the preview show, it feels a little bit like they're trying to kind of replicate what Luton did in terms of their recruitment. I know they've made a few splashes in the last 48 hours that suggest otherwise. But I think there is a long-term vision that they do want to try and stay in the Premier League, but are kind of very well aware that perhaps relegation could be on the cards, because it is a huge step up. A lot of that squad was with them in League One. So yeah, intrigued to see how they go, especially in those first two games. Hell of an introduction to life back in the top flight. But I think they'll fancy their chances, actually, being at home, early kick-off against the Liverpool side, who obviously have lost their iconic coach and have been dealt a bit of a PR blow with the news that Zubimendi rejected them this week to stay at Real Sociedad. So Liverpool might be licking their wounds a little bit, and Ipswich will be the exciting, the attacking team that Adrian talked about, really. And they have scored freely under Kieran McKenna, and I don't think they will curb those instincts completely, despite playing Liverpool. The fact this game is at Portman Road will give them that edge to feel that they can be competitive. And, when I started looking at this match, I was veering towards the Asian handicap and sort of trying to get Ipswich on side in some way or form, because I do believe they can score in this match. And, you can push it to plus 1 3/4 if you wanted to get Ipswich on side. But I thought the better bet, the more appealing play for me, was to back Liverpool to win and both teams to score, which is 262, seduced by the bigger price, really, and the reality that Liverpool probably will just have too much firepower for an Ipswich side who didn't impress defensively en route to promotion. As for Liverpool, I know it's a different coach, different circumstances, but last season, 7 wins from 9 trips to teams in 12th and below away from home. They averaged 195 goals per game away from home. Szoboszlai is a doubt, but beyond that, I think they're in a pretty good place, health and fitness-wise. That definitely wasn't the case last year, of course. But defensively too, Liverpool conceded in all bar 10 Premier League games and kept just 4 clean sheets on their travels as well. So if you look at the market, BTTS is trading at 174, which isn't the worst price. It's 190 if you pair BTTS and overs. I know Adrian's pushed it further with Liverpool to win and over 2.5 goals. But yeah, I'm kind of happy to be a bit more bullish here and back Liverpool and BTTS to get the price to 262, because I do think Ipswich can contribute.
Okay, Mark seduced by the bigger price, and I think I am as well, to maybe start the theme on a similar line to last season. Let's go to Liverpool and both teams score. Yes, 262, locking in as the first official bet on the Matchbook betting podcast this season. West Ham versus Aston Villa, Saturday, 5:30 game. Mark, we really want to talk about this one, so let's take a look at the betting. West Ham 254 favourites against Aston Villa at 286. Champions League Aston Villa, that is, draw 385. Both teams score yes, and 154, continuing to get back that yes. The Asian handicap line is drawn up out effectively with West Ham the favourites at 187. The goal line here is 3.5. The unders is 163. So Mark, this is set up. West Ham have had a great window in terms of making a lot of signings, but it is, with a new management there, it is going to take a lot of time to bend in, you would assume. Whereas Aston Villa don't have the Champions League football to focus on next. How do you sort of see in this game shaping up?
Well, for me, it's probably the most interesting game on match day 1, I thought, at least. So I wanted to cover it because I think both clubs come into this season with a high degree of optimism, plenty of hopes, plenty of expectation. And I think rightfully so, really. West Ham had that very productive transfer window. The defence was catastrophic last season, which was quite surprising for a David Moyes team. But they've made moves to overhaul it. Kilman, Todibo, very, very exciting centre-half signings, or at least Todibo rejected Juventus in favour of West Ham. You've got Aaron Wan-Bissaka, who I think will probably find a good home for himself and be the consistent defender we know he can be. And Guido Rodriguez is a really solid holding midfielder too. So they've upgraded their options at the back. And up front, they're already pretty strong, weren't they? But Fulkrug and Somerville to add to Kudus and Bowen and Paqueta. There's a lot to like, I think, about West Ham now under Lopetegui. He won't give West Ham fans that kind of swashbuckling side that they probably wanted, but he will make them difficult to beat. They'll be organised, efficient, solid. And then you've got an Aston Villa side who've enjoyed an extraordinary rise under Unai Emery. Remember, it's less than 2 years ago since Steven Gerrard was sacked and they were only outside the bottom 3 on goals scored. He has revolutionised that club, guiding them to 7th, then 4th in his first full season. He's averaged 1.88 points per game in charge of the Premier League side. So superb stuff, really. I do think Diaby and Douglas Luiz are big losses. Boubacar Kamara is still out as well, but Onana, Barkley, some decent midfield reinforcements. Maatsen should be an upgrade at left back. And as you say, I probably foresee a bit of regression further down the line, but perhaps not in the early stages of the season. So, they're well stocked. They'll command respect, and as we can see in the prices for this match. But the more I thought about this, the more I sort of prepped for this game. The draw came into my school of thought here at 3.8. It's not often we put the draw up, but I do think there's a lot of similarities between these two teams. Even if you look at the head-to-head records, which I don't tend to do, that's Adrian's kind of ballpark. But I think 5 of the last 12 meetings have been drawn between these two. The last 2 at the London Stadium have been drawn. Last season, West Ham only lost 4 times at home, 2 of which came against the top 2. Exclude City and Arsenal, they actually drew 8 of 17 home league games. As for Villa, half of their 8 away wins last season came against the bottom 5. Exclude them, and they went 4-4-6 in terms of their away results. And ultimately, it came down to the fact that these are 2 coaches. They just happen to be Spanish, but both prefer to play a sort of robust, difficult to beat style. Both are very tactically astute. Both probably prefer to play counter-attacking football. I think both are regimental when it comes to a process and positional awareness. Neither coach will demand his team to dominate possession. I still think it will be enjoyable, but I think at the prices, the 3.8 on the draw is the one to stand out.
Okay, and Adrian, you're in full agreement here by and large. I mean, we're not going to get anywhere this season if we just constantly agree with each other.
No, this won't last. Definitely not. But look, we're going off. There's no data this season. We're going off sort of feels at the moment, aren't we, and historical stuff, and just looking at the players and the squads assembled and the styles of play and trying to make an assessment. And that's all you can really do at this stage of the season. It's only in a few weeks' time that patterns start to emerge and develop. So I think me and Mike are a little bit like-minded in regards to this game. I don't think there's much between the two sides. I think they're both battling for top 6, and they're capable of potentially getting there if United and Chelsea flounder for sure. So I think the Lopetegui Emery factor is something that should be considered here. Know each other well, both Basque. They have quite an evenish record against one another. Games don't tend to, on their head-to-head, the games have been relatively low scoring and evenly matched. And I think it will be the same again. They are 2 coaches that are concerned about the opposition and negating the opposition's strengths. So again, will they cancel one another out? That's my logic potentially here. I don't. If somebody takes the lead, I can see, rather than putting their foot on the gas, maybe just sitting on it and just playing it carefully, because they have a lot of respect for each other, and rightly so, because both teams have got great forward players. Villa obviously with Watkins and Bailey and others, and West Ham with their glittering attack, really. So I can see a draw here. It was 1 apiece in the last 2 meetings at London Stadium, and I looked at that actually as a long shot. Gone with something else in the end, just to mix things up. But that's 8.6 on the 1-1. And for me, that is the most likely scoreline here. But what I'll do is just squeeze a little bit of juice out of Mark's draw and just say, can we just go draw an under 4.5, which effectively means we're back in the 0-0, the 1-1, or the 2-2. If it's 3-3, we take our medicine. There's not many 3-3s, are there? So I just think 2 good teams, 2 coaches that will be pragmatic by nature in this game, because they respect one another. And I Yeah, I think 1-1 is a decent shout. West Ham have conceded at least one in each of their last 18 Premier League games. This new look defence does excite me. I think that has potential to be strong, but maybe on the opening weekend they might be undone. Once, maybe twice. So yeah, I'm going to go with the draw and under 4.5. You can just eke out the price to 4.1, which feels pretty nice.
Okay, yeah, if you want that over 3-1, lock in there. Draw with the under 4.5 goals. Let's play it a tiny bit relatively safe, that is, and go with draw. It's Mark's pick again, I guess. So West Ham versus Aston Villa.
He's expecting the 3-3 or the 4-4, aren't you, Hussey? I like
it's just the unknown, as you touched on, the opening day of the season. And we do sort of in the next game have a game to go on. I know Chelsea hosted City early on in the season, not this early, obviously, and probably one of their best performances in a 4-4 from memory. But let's take a look at the betting that we currently have on the Matchbook betting exchange. So Chelsea are 4.4 here under new management as well. Man City 187. The draw is available at 4.1. Both teams to score, yes, 155. So the market expecting goals here. The Asian handicap line sees Chelsea get a 3/4 goal head start, and the total for this game 3.5. Once again, unders at 172. So yeah, Adrian, I touched on the 4-4 last season. I don't know if we can put much into that, but just show it's probably not the worst time to get Man City the opening game of the season at home.
Yeah, you'd think
Maybe.
it, but I mean, City have a very good record on the opening Premier League weekend. They've won 12 of their last 13 on match week 1. So yeah, they did lose 1-0 to Spurs. I think it would have been about 3 years ago, but that's it. They've won every other game. So yeah, just every year they don't get their players back until a week before the start of the season. But every year they seem to just turn it on when the Premier League kicks in. And I kind of expect them to do that here. Obviously, you've got Maresca, who's a disciple of Pep Guardiola, worked at the club's 21s, then worked as his assistant season before last. So you're going to get a manager in Maresca that's going to try and replicate City style. It will be almost identical. But are they as good at it? And the bottom line is no, certainly not based on pre-season, which has been a bit tough, I think, for Maresca. He is very principled. It is his way. He's not moulding Chelsea around his own around the players he inherits. He's looking at the play. He's asking the players that he inherits to adapt to what he wants from them, which I always think is a little bit dangerous. And I think it hasn't gone to plan in the last few weeks. These two, by the way, did meet on tour in America, and it was 4-2 to City. 4-0 up Manchester City were before a couple of late consolations. All the goals that City scored came from turnovers. I think 3 of them pretty much inside the defensive third where Chelsea are trying to play out from the back, which is what Maresca's asking them to do, and they were robbed because City are a brilliant pressing team, aren't they? So I do see City giving them a lot of problems with their press in this match. I don't think they would have fixed it, Chelsea, in a matter of days. So yeah, I can see City really suffocating Chelsea at times. But when Chelsea get their foot on the ball and they move up the pitch, they've got players that can equally hurt Manchester City. We know that. But yeah, I think actually it's a good time for City to play Chelsea. That's where I'm coming at with this. I think that they will get better, Chelsea. But in the here and now, the last thing they need is to play the best team in the world. Yeah, because if they're unsure about anything, then City will exploit it. And reading between the lines, I've got a few friends that follow Chelsea very closely. They tell me that really Dewsbury Hall is very au fait with the system. He knows it inside out, but everyone else has been asked to do different things. And I just think when things are so fresh, you don't want to come up against a top team. So, yeah, for me, City will win the game. I back them to win at Stamford Bridge this time, and because of the odds, I think there's a temptation to go overs here. But Chelsea will be quite boring at times as well. They'll keep the ball for 5 minutes. They'll go side to side, back to front. They will keep it, and I think that they will try and make it a slower, less frantic match than a Pochettino Chelsea side would have done. So for that reason, I'm going to lean towards unders because they're doing it for real now. It's not a friendly in the States. I think that it will be a cagier match than we've seen before between these two. So yeah, City and under 4.5. It's one of our classics. It's a staple of this podcast. But it comes in at 2.56. And, I like that price back in City against most teams. So yeah, I'm happy with that.
So yeah, Mark, I came into this thinking this opening weekend, whatever happens, come 4:30, Chelsea will have a bit of a shot at City, but that last 90 seconds from Adrian has really sort of tempered my enthusiasm. 187 on Man City off the basis of what he said there is probably too big then, if that's the case.
I think it is. I put up Manchester City to win the game at 187, but I've been totally seduced by that. Was it 258 on City and under 4.5?
256, yeah.
Didn't see that. Yeah,
Mark, this is you're getting seduced left, right, and centre with these bigger prices. This isn't Mark O'Hare's way.
Under 4.5 packaged alongside it definitely is, and I didn't realise the leap was that great. So, yeah, the price on 187 just to win the match was good enough for me when I was doing my prep, because the last two times City have been to Stamford Bridge, they won off at 176 and 167. So that's a decent difference. I think you have to then question, well, what's changed since then? Have Chelsea gotten better? Have City gotten worse? Has both happened? Has the opposite happened? It's difficult to really know at this stage of the season, but I would say that Chelsea probably aren't hugely better and City definitely aren't massively worse. So in that regard, I think City are worth a play here. They weren't great against the top six last season, just 2 wins in 10. Obviously drew home and away against Chelsea, and I think Chelsea were pretty good in both of those matches. But the key point here is what Adrian's been labouring, really, is it's different team, different circumstances, different head coach. And I think the jury is going to be out on Enzo Maresca for quite some time, really. I know Leicester fans weren't hugely disappointed to see him go. Some of the football can be a little bit monotonous at times, and they clearly had the strongest squad in the Championship, but it's gotten weaker since promotion. And if you compare and contrast with Mauricio Pochettino this time last year, into December he'd won just 4 times in the Premier League. So just kind of goes to show it can take time to bed your ideas and system in, and especially at Chelsea where they've been chopping and changing so many times in recent years. Understandably, the players might take some time to adjust. So you compare with City. Yes, they've lost Alvarez. Yes, Oscar Bob has been injured now, which is a great shame for him. But Grealish still has a point to prove, and they're well stocked in forward areas. Savio's a great pickup from Girona. He's had a great season in Spain last year. So the only question mark around City for me is the availability of Rodri. We know how much they've toiled without him in the last 18 months. I hear he's back in training. You want him fit and available. I presume he might play, but even if he's not, I'm happy to sort of take a shot on City at those prices because Chelsea, there's just so much less noise surrounding City than there is at Chelsea at the minute. They're a bit chaotic, and City definitely aren't. So the away team for me.
Okay, and if Mark's seduced, I think I am too. Let's lock in the bigger price and give Adrian his first selection of the season. Manchester City and under 4.5 goals. Maresca, incidentally, on a 5-year contract with the option of a 6th year. And judging by what the lads have said there, I don't know if
should we have
5 months.
what price he sees out the 5 years?
Oh, Jesus. Any price you like. 999.
Yeah, any quote available.
Any price you like. So please clip this if you want, any Chelsea fans. Let's move on. Leicester versus Tottenham Hotspur on Monday night. Leicester 5.5. Given a chance here against Spurs, who are 165. The draw is 4.6. Both teams to score again 158, so short enough price. The Asian handicap line sees Leicester get a 1-goal head start at the goal line, 3.5. Mark, back to you. I mean, not to spoil the podcast too much, or the outright podcast that is, you're quite sweet on Tottenham and the job Ange has done over the last 12 months. So maybe summarize that a little bit. And I guess looking at their team, even looking at fantasy this week, that front four that they have, they've suddenly got so many options, even though they've only probably added Solanke into that mix, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, it's exciting to be a Spurs fan at the moment. I am pretty sweet on them. I think the work Ange Postecoglou did last season was remarkable, considering the circumstances that he inherited. A team playing a totally different way. They just lost their record goal scorer or best ever striker, you could say, and to immediately transform them through the summer with some good recruitment, it must be said, to get them hitting the ground running the way in which they did. A total gear change, complete mood swing off the field too. And I think we saw in the first third of the campaign, when Spurs are able to field their best 11 or close to it, they can be a force in this division. And it looks like they're going to be pretty fit and healthy coming into the campaign. They've made some smart additions. I really like Archie Gray. I think his versatility will be a big asset for them. Solanke is probably the striker they have missed since Kane, because whilst Richarlison can fill that void, I think Solanke gives you a little bit more in terms of his off-the-field work, his physicality, his ability to bring others into play too. And yeah, I mean, this is a Tottenham team who scored at least twice in 29 Premier League games last season. And if they repeat that feat, I think they're going to win some football games and get close to that top 4, or even closer than they were last year. So, I like them to start strongly here. They won 7 away games from 12 against teams in 10th and below last season, which is a strong record. Interestingly, they won all 4 at the bottom 4. They scored twice or more in 5 of 6 trips to the bottom 6. I think Spurs score twice here, they win the game. And there's plenty of doubt and concerns surrounding Leicester's ability right now. They lost Maresca, they lost Dewsbury Hall. They've been restricted in their transfer market, so moves have been a little bit underwhelming so far. They look a weaker team than the one that won the championship title not so long ago. I do like Steve Cooper, but even he has sounded pretty alarmed by the current situation. They got absolutely schooled by Lens in their final pre-season game, lost the shot count 17-2. Both shots they had were from outside the box. Leicester City's official highlights package from the match featured 12 minutes of highlights and no Leicester City attempts at goal. So
What?
It's quite exactly, yeah, it's quite concerning, really. And it was a similar story against Freiburg in their, in their previous pre-season friendly too. So Cooper's come out publicly and sort of being a bit critical, really, of their in-possession style at the moment, and he's struggling to find a formula right now. And they're going into this game without Vardy, without Daka, without Connor Cody as well. So a lot of concerns, and I think that Spurs high press will put them under huge pressure. And you talked about the firepower. I expect Spurs to score and score at least a couple here, and if they do, I think they win the game. So Tottenham to win and over 1.5 goals is 187.
Did you watch all 12 minutes of that highlights package, Mark?
No, I didn't. No.
I was wondering. I was like, fair play if you did. Who signed that off? I know it was probably decided before, but who signed that off? Anyway, Adrian, it sounds like Leicester's problems are a lot worse than we even discussed on the Outright podcast fairly briefly.
Yeah, I agree with what Mark said. Like, I live in the area and very pessimistic. A lot of Leicester City fans around here. They don't really want Steve Cooper in the first place. I don't think Steve Cooper is the problem at all here. I rate him. I think he's a good manager, but it's a massive style shift from Maresca to Cooper. Cooper's a counter-attacking manager and organiser, someone that wants to play quick on the break, which I think is Leicester's sort of natural habitat or natural sort of style in top flight football. So I think they'll be all right in time, but we don't know about points deductions. We don't know about the injuries and how bad they're going to be. They certainly need to sign a striker quickly, I'd suggest. Yeah, I really fancy Tottenham here, I've got to say, on the Monday night. For all of the reasons Mark outlined, they scored multiple goals in most matches they play, whether that's home or away, Tottenham. And they're up against a Leicester team that are tactically very much in transition. I feel like it could be a comfy away win. Spurs did win all 6 of their league games against promoted sides last term. That represented quite a big share really of their total win rate. So this is the type of fixture they won under Ange, and this is the big stat. All right, Mark will love this. They don't like Monday nights, Leicester. They don't like Monday nights. They've lost half.
Can't handle them.
They've lost half of their Premier League games played on Mondays. Only on a Friday are Leicester worse than they are on a Monday. So that's the game changer for me. No, for all of the reasons Mark outlined, you got to back Spurs here, I think, and just pairing it with over 1.5, which they can cover themselves, takes it to a backable 187.
I'm trying to find it. I was thinking maybe there was a game last year I watched on a Monday as well in the Championship that Leicester lost. But anyway, I'll digress on that. We'll lock that in. Tottenham over 1.5 goals. Insights.matchbook.com. Full recap of all the guys' selections. Agent, I will throw these 2 back to you. Okay. 2 EFL picks. Okay, I'm really excited for the EFL season, albeit we're a week in already, but EFL section on this podcast. So take it away with your couple of picks.
Yeah, up and running. Obviously, we do have a sample size here. We've seen them last weekend in the league. And we've seen half a team put out by most in the Carabao Cup in midweek. So you've got a little bit of an indication of what these teams are going to be like. First one, I'm going to go to League One. Mansfield against Burton. It's not a glamour tie. It's two pretty smallish clubs going head to head. Kind of the Nigel Clough derby, if you like. The 2 very attack-minded managers. I saw Mansfield on the opening night, actually, at Barnsley in the flesh, and they played ever so well. They were really, really good the first half hour, then they came on strong again towards the end. They play some really positive attacking football. They've got some nice, neat and tidy footballers. Davis Keeler-Dunn is one. They've got a lot of good forwards. Good midfielder called Keanu Bacchus that impressed me as well. So they'll take it. take it to Burton in this game. Burton have employed Mark Robinson, the former AFC Wimbledon manager. He's a fearless guy, very bold, wants to be on the front foot, wants to go and score goals and outscore teams. So I think Burton are going to be a lot of fun to watch this season. They lost 3-2 at home on the opening day to Lincoln, lost 4-0 at home to Blackpool in the Cup, but they did have a player sent off quite early in that. So already they're leaking goals, Burton, but they carry firepower. So I'm looking at this Mansfield team that only lost 8 games last season in the league, in League Two, at home to adventurous Burton. I see goals. I think over 2.5 feels kind of nailed on here. And then I want to pair it with the Mansfield draw double chance. So I'm going to effectively write off Burton's chances of winning. They did win 5 of 23 away games last season, so 18 of 23 games. The double chance against them landed, and I'm happy to take that on. So yeah, Mansfield or the draw and over 2.5 goals comes out at a lovely 2.3.
Okay, yeah, and you can of course do that on the Bet Builder on the Match Betting Exchange, available in the UK and Ireland now, so well worth checking out. You can of course do singles in that Bet Builder too, so that brings all sorts of markets into play as well. Second EFL selection, Adrian.
Yeah, League Two, Newport against Doncaster. Donny have started the season fabulously. 4-1 win against Accrington Stanley, even though I think they're going to struggle this season. Then they went to Salford in the Cup, won 2-0 away, which is impressive. Luke Molyneux, winger, he scored in both games. And Billy Sharp, you'll all know Billy Sharp. He scored in both games as well. Sort of, yeah, ending his career, I guess. I think he played for Doncaster years and years ago. So nice sort of full circle career for Billy Sharp there. Doncaster were very unlucky not to go up last season. They were the best team in the division for the last 2 or 3 months of it. If you include the 2 wins that we've seen so far this season, Doncaster have won 13 of their last 15 matches. So they are buoyant. And they come up against a Newport team in South Wales that are in transition. They got a new manager, Nelson Jardim. Don't know much about him, I've got to be honest, other than the fact he wants to play attractive passing football. He's one of those kind of managers that's going to work with young players, coach them, and get them passing, knocking the ball around. Well, that's great, but League Two is pretty industrial still. And I think with lots of new players, new style, they're going to have teething problems. They lost 3-2 at Cheltenham. They lost 4-1 at Leyton Orient in the Cup in midweek, which tells me that at the moment they're a little bit of a soft touch. And if you got issues defensively, you don't want to come up against Doncaster at the moment. So I'm going to back Doncaster on the nose at Newport to win this game. They are odds on, but it's backable in my opinion at 1.85.
Okay, yeah, full recap, as I said, insights.matchbet.com. That's Doncaster to win away at Newport, and Mansfield double chance and over 2.5 goals versus Burton. Mark, you're going to the championship here, and look, I know a lot of Leeds United fans already panicking for the season and wanting the manager gone, etc. I don't know what your take on that is, and then lead into West Brom. The worst thing is I can sort of see where they're coming from as well.
Yeah, I think these will be fine in the long term, but in the short term, I think they are a team to oppose. Thursday, we've seen the news that Brighton have activated the release clause of Jorginho Rutta's contract. He's agreed terms, so that's another big blow for Leeds and their threadbare squad. They've already lost Archie Gray, Arsenio Somerville, the Championship Player of the Year, Glenn Kamara, and now Rutta. Those 4 players combined make up 170 starts from their Championship team last season. So, they're big players for Leeds last year, and replacements of incomings have been pretty slow for Leeds. As I say, I think they'll be fine long term, but I think short term they can be opposed. Typical Leeds really last week, weren't they? They hit the woodwork 3 times in the opening 10 minutes, dominated Portsmouth for the most part, but still managed to draw that game 3-3 despite conceding just 5 shots. And then midweek they make 8 changes against Borough and lose 3-0 at home. So yeah, the pressure is on Daniel Farke to turn that tide and turn it quickly. I know a lot of fans were disappointed with the way in which they ended last season, so perhaps that malaise has crept into this season. But yeah, happy to oppose them here. I think they're a bit too short to support, really. They were 2.29 to win away at West Brom last season. They didn't. They lost. They're a shorter price this time around. So I just don't see any sort of justification for that. They also were held by West Brom at Elland Road. And look, Albion aren't the same side as last year either. They've lost a the heartbeat of their side. But I kind of back Carlos Corberán and his pragmatism, his organisational skills to make West Brom very difficult to beat. And, QPR got Corberán last weekend on the opening day. Solid, efficient, effective, physical, well organised, difficult to break down. Everything we come to expect from a West Brom side under Corberán. And they're back at the Hawthorns now, where their record is exemplary, really, since he was appointed. Just 6 league losses and 38 at the Championship since he took charge. 2.16 points per game, 22 clean sheets in those 38 fixtures as well. So quite happy to oppose Leeds and back West Brom plus half a goal at 182. Leeds at 218, just too short.
Okay, that concludes our EFL section. That's West Brom plus half a goal on the Asian handicap. Mark, you've 2 international picks. You've literally changed our EFL European section to EFL and Rest of the World section off your own bat. It was great to see that this morning.
Yeah, well, obviously it's early days in Europe, so I like to sort of just see where we're at. A lot of business still to be done. So I've been keeping track with South America as well. So I'll run through these pretty quickly. But first is Talleres against Independiente Rivadavia in Argentina, if I can get that one out. There's a lot more data, a lot more evidence to work with here. And this match in Argentina does appeal. I'm going to back the visitors with a plus 3/4 start on the Asian handicap at 1.8 for a few reasons, really. Starting with Talleres, they drew this match 1-1 in a reverse game back in April. Sorry, I start with the Rivadavia. They held Talleres 1-1 in the reverse game back in April. They're in good form right now. Just 1 defeat in 5. They held Boca Juniors last time out. They've conceded just 3 goals in their recent 5 games. Defensively, they've been very strong. They play a 5-man defensive structure out of possession, and they're very difficult to beat and break down, similar to what I was saying about West Brom, actually. And then you compare and contrast with Talleres. It went on a really strange mid-season trip to Russia, and their form and performance levels have decreased massively since they came back. They're winless in 5. 4 of those games were drawn, but it's been a difficult week for them because they lost Ramon Sosa, their star midfielder, to Nottingham Forest, and they've been very ordinary in attacking areas for quite some time now too. But I think most crucially coming into this match, this game is sandwiched between their 2 Copa Libertadores matches. So they're due to travel to River Plate just 3 days after this fixture. So we're expecting a bit of rotation, a bit of resting as they prioritise the Copa. And that means Rivadavia should be, in with a chance here of getting something. So, if you back them with a 3/4 goal start, even if they lose by 1 goal margin, we only lose half of our stake. And the visitors haven't lost by 2 goal margin since March. So I think they can be competitive. And then in Brazil, I'm going to back a team who are winless in 12 matches. I'm going to back them in the draw no bet or plus a 0 Asian handicap, whichever you prefer. That's Internacional as they go away to Atletico Go. The key point here is they might be winless in 12, but Atletico Go are winless in 15, and they are the worst team in the Brazilian top flight. So happy to oppose them at home because Inter have been hugely impacted by the recent flooding in Brazil. It meant they had to relocate away from the stadium, away from their region, play all their matches away from home. Understandably, they suffered because of that, but they're starting to find their form and find their stride again. They've drawn 4 on the spin, picked up really good points against Bahia and Palmeiras, 2 really strong opponents recently in that streak. And Go have been just awful all season, really. 12 points from 22. They're now facing a side with the second best defensive record according to expected goals, the side who dominated them in the reverse game. And also, it should be said that because of the flooding, because of the postponements, Inter have got 5 games in hand over the rest of their league rivals. Their underlying metrics have actually been very strong, top half, top 6 material. So, the current league table is giving them a very false reading. They're a top half team at bare minimum. So 1.8, draw no bet, or if you can, plus 0 on the Asian handicap for Internacional.
Okay, yeah. I wonder whatever happened in Russia, Mark, in those few games. Because whatever happened.
Let's not go there.
Let's not get into that. Long shots time. And Adrian, you very similar to Mark, but you're siding with West Brom. I guess both of you really want to take on Leeds because the market maybe hasn't quite caught up yet because it's such a small sample size.
Yeah, we're kicking Daniel Farquhar's down. Yeah, we didn't know that we were both going to pick the same game, but we're sticking with it, which I think is fair enough. My long shot would be West Brom to beat Leeds and over 1.5 goals. It's 5.3, which is basically where any West Brom win, barring the 1-0. Look, I went to this game last year, I worked on it, and it was 1-0 to West Brom, which is a possibility because they don't give a lot away. Leeds did have quite a few chances in the game, as did West Brom actually, but it ended up 1-0. So that's the element of risk. But to get the bigger price, I want to go overs rather than unders here. And look, Mark's outlined it very well in his section. West Brom are a terrific home team. You know, they very, very rarely lose at home. They are a tough nut to crack. What happened in the game last year is that Corbrand totally schooled Daniel Farke. Farke thought that his tactics would be to sort of expose West Brom's pressing by going long over the top to use the quickies to get in behind. And they had no joy whatsoever. It was really poor. And they fell behind and they chased the game and they became a bit of a rabble. Leeds United had loads of attackers on the pitch and no real idea or pattern of play. And it was comfy for West Brom. They should have won by more. Leeds are worse now in terms of their personnel. They've lost too many good players. The O'Haire news must be devastating for the supporters and the squad actually, and for Daniel Farke. He's one of their main men. I would say that Somerville and O'Haire were the two that he would have least liked to lose this season, and it looks like they're both going. So yeah, morale must be very, very low. They got tonked in the Carabao Cup at home to Middlesbrough last night. So yeah, it's not been the start to the season they're looking for. You know, conceded 6 goals in 2 matches. Really, really poor. But 7 goals actually, isn't it, in 2 matches? So yeah, real shocker. A little bit concerning for them. Yeah, I'm going to back West Brom to cause what would be regarded as an upset here. And the only result I'm ruling out is a 1-0, and it takes us to 5-3.
Okay, 5.3 West Brom over 1.5 goals. Mark, Lille knocked out Jose Mourinho's Fenerbahce. So they're on a cloud 9 after Tuesday night, but you're not backing them this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
No, a team like Lille, to the carrot of getting into the Champions League is enormous, and it always feels a little bit unfair for these teams that they have to play these ginormous fixtures right at the beginning of the season. But yeah, I think Lille have to be opposed this weekend because of that, and they're sub 2.2 away at Rams. They're in between Champions League qualifiers, so on Tuesday they were in Turkey for that match, which went the full distance, squeezed past Fenerbahce in extra time, and then on this Tuesday, they're facing Slavia Prague in the final qualification round to get into the Champions League proper. So hugely important week for Lille, and I think they could be forgiven for having their eyes elsewhere on match day 1 of Liga. They're playing a Rams team who are no longer under Will Still's watch, but they have a new head coach who has a very reasonable pedigree at this level, as an underdog as well, getting results against big boys. He was at Le Havre, a Slovenian guy, did very well last year to get them into Liga and then to consolidate them, and performed relatively well against the top dogs. So Rams are 3.6 to win this match. They're a decent team. They're probably better than that price suggests, but I'll even say even better because of the circumstances surrounding Lille. But to get it to sort of long shot material, I'm going to include under 3.5 goals. So Rams to win 1-0, 2-0, 3-0 or 2-1, and it boosts it to 4.7. So yeah, just a bet against Lille more than anything.
Cool. Rams and under 3.5 goals. The long shot pick from Mark. Very profitable section of the podcast last year, and of course in the Euros as well. Adrian, best bet time, and you gave this a huge shout out in our preview. So you're sticking with Tottenham and over 1.5 goals on Monday night. Yeah,
of all my picks today, it's Tottenham to win at Leicester and over 1.5 goals that stands out the most. Yeah, I just really fancy them. I think it's a good time to catch Leicester. Injuries to their 2 best strikers effectively. The team stylistically in transition. Morale is very, very low on the back of some friendly match tonkings that they've taken. And Spurs, yeah, Spurs impressed me under Postecoglou. I love the attacking style. Yes, it's a bit risky and they'll give chances away, but they've got some serious firepower this season. Spurs, as Mark pointed out earlier, have scored at least 2 goals in 27 of 38 matches last season, which is extraordinary. Over 2.5 landed in almost 80% of the matches, 30 of 38. So yeah, it just feels that over 1.5 and Spurs is obviously nothing is ever guaranteed. But if Spurs are to win this game, I imagine it won't be 1-0 that we'll see more than 1 goal. I think they can cover this themselves. They can score 2, 3, or maybe even 4 at the King Power Stadium on Monday night. So yeah, Spurs and over 1.5.
Spurs and over 1.5, 1.87 on Matchbook at time of recording. Mark, 2 games in Scotland so far to work off, and in the Championship you have Ayr, top of the league, 6.7 goals scored and unconceded, and Hamilton 1 point so far this season, 0 goals scored and 2 goals conceded. So why are we getting 1.8 on Ayr to win at home?
Don't know, Dan. I don't imagine that price will be there in a couple of weeks, because interestingly, these two teams actually played each other on match day 1 of the Scottish Championship season. Right at the beginning of August, Ayr went to Hamilton and won that game 2-0 quite comfortably. Hamilton, a newly promoted team, did very well in League One last season, but they've had a difficult start to the season because in Scotland they've already had a League Cup group phase where teams played 4 matches in a 5-team group. Hamilton won just once in their 4 fixtures. That came against a League 2 side, Stranraer. They failed to score in 2 of their other 3 matches, and they've obviously been blank now in their opening 2 league fixtures. So things aren't going their way right now, having failed to score in 4 of 6 across League and Cup. And Ayr are anything but. Ayr are scoring freely, they're looking very strong. They won 3 of their 4 group games in the League Cup, only lost to Dundee United of the Premiership 2-1. They've since started, as you say, back-to-back victories, 2-0 at Hamilton, then thrashed Airdrie 5-0 last weekend. You look at the data so far from those 2 fixtures, 36 shots, 18 on target. They've conceded just 4 attempts on target and 12 shots overall. So, quite happy to be with Ayr. The money is coming for them. They were close to about 1.95 on Wednesday. I think they're down to 180. I'd back them down to 170. So, Ayr to beat Hamilton on Saturday.
I can't believe that quirk of the fixture list because of the League Cup, I guess. Match day 11, it says in front of me here, this game this weekend. So it's obviously been brought forward.
Yes, so both teams are out of the League Cup. So they're the only game to take place basically in the top 2 leagues.
Wow, that's insane to me. That's Ayr 1.8, but being backed Mark Warren. So at the time recording, which is about 2 p.m. on Thursday, it is Ayr at around 1.8 on the Matchbook betting exchange. Before we go, quick couple of comments to get to for the guys. I think there was one on goal line, so maybe one for you, Mark. What's the general consensus of the panel? The under over 2.5 goal distribution. I think Adrian has the stats on a record number of Premier League goals last season, but there's obviously the Euros coming back, Mark. I guess you don't really know till the games get underway, do you?
Yeah, I wouldn't have a strong opinion either way. I can understand, player fatigue after a major tournament, but the alternative view is sort of sloppy, unorganised defences often lead to extra goals as well, and particularly that's the case on match day 1 when teams haven't had a huge amount of preparation time. Not all of those players will have been away at major tournaments either. So, I think it's a case-by-case basis based on the coach and the players available at each particular moment. So, I think I've seen match day 1 weekends when goals have gone crazy, but also the opposite too. So, I haven't got the stats to hand to back it up either way.
Adrian, record number of goals last season?
It was, yeah. I can't remember how. I think it's 162 extra goals. Like we smashed the record by that amount. It was, I think, 1,246, and before we hadn't even got to 1,100 in a season. So quite remarkable, really. I do think that we'll see that stay. I do think that over 2.5 will land more often than it won't this season. I just think it's the way football has gone. There's more and more attacking head coaches around. Obviously, we know about the added time. That was certainly a factor last season. And I think that is going to continue because, the ball was in play more often last season. And that's a big tick for the Premier League. They want the ball in play for as long as possible. So I don't think they're going to discourage the added time. The only caveat is that there's going to be a slightly higher bar when it comes to penalties. I think there's a very conscious decision among the EFL and the Premier League this season that maybe too many soft ones have been given in recent years. So I think there will be fewer soft penalties if they're as good as their word this time around. So that's the only reason I can see it retracting. I think attacking football is here to stay in the short term.
Okay, looking forward to that. Insights.matchbook.com. We'll have full recap of all the guys' selections and the final up-to-date prices. I know there's 1 or 2 market moves as the guys were even talking there. So do check out Matchbook Insights or insights.matchbook.com. But my thanks to Mark and Adrian. We'll be back hopefully same time, same place next week to preview Game Week 2 as the Premier League season kicks into gear a couple of weeks before the international break. But until then, enjoy the weekend and do check out the Matchbook Betting Exchange if you are looking for a bet on any of the markets discussed. Enjoy the weekend. Bye-bye.